Are you ready?
Power.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth!
Why are you excited to be here tonight?
Because I'm just excited.
Yeah. No other explanation. Now, I do believe, tell me the truth. Is it true that your dad has a ringside seat, but didn't get you guys ringside seats?
That is true, but it's because of his YouTube channel, okay? It's his YouTube, okay?
Her dad's an influencer. Let him go, guys. But your dad's awesome, right?
Yeah.
See, he's awesome. Yeah! Give it up for Claire. Thank you.
Maybe I should take the graphic down. I'm having tech issues today. What's going on? I'm not doing so hot. Hey, this is the pre-party. My name is Jay Cal, and each and every Tuesday we come to you, the hashtag NWA fam, to talk about all things National Wrestling Alliance. But tonight, this afternoon, we're going to take a little detour because last week we were joined in the chat by a good friend of the show, awesome person, the amazing Reina Del Rey. I call her Raze. You can call her Raze. You can see her every week on WOW as Reina Del Rey. But she agreed to join us. So she's here with us live today. What's up, Raze? How are you, girl?
Hi, I'm doing all right. All right.
So the last time you and I spoke on camera, it had been a while. You know, you were still, I believe you're still competing as Venomous in the early days of your WOW time.
Maybe. I don't know. Y'all, honestly, I couldn't tell you when AWS maybe last time.
Yeah, we did something at we did that pre-record. We did a recorded interview at the birthday bash. That was Ray's and Peter Avalon's birthday bash in Southgate at the AWS arena. And then I thought we did something else too, but maybe not. It's been a while.
I feel like we did do something else.
Pandemic, I think.
Probably.
By the way, peep the shirt.
Oh, that one's really nice.
This is the one my wife made this one on Cricket because you weren't selling them yet.
Yeah, I need one of those. That one's really dope.
I'll put an order in.
Thanks.
Look, I'll make you two. I'll put one with this on it and the other one with the Alliance logo on it.
Yes.
Speaking of the Alliance, I mean, I keep up with WOW, and it's mostly because you and a few other SoCal ladies have, kind of taken over WOW. I mean, Chantilly Lace and Holly Dead and, the roster just feels like there's a lot of SoCal female talents on that show. The Alliance, this one caught me for a curveball. I love the name, by the way, but how did this happen? Was this something that came from the directors? This is the story that they're booking, or is this something like were you guys coming up with ideas on your own?
Oh no, I had absolutely no idea until it actually was happening. The Alliance, which is me, Adriana Gambino, Gigi Gianni, and BK Rhythm. We came together. Me and Gambino previously were a tag team, and then she was managing me, and now we brought in these two, and Adriana Gambino, obviously the head of the family here. So me, the muscle, and then we've got the two brats with the brat pack.
Yeah,
it's nice. It's nice to be in a faction. I always wanted to be in a faction.
Well, and you've been a part of some pretty legendary tag teams, as far as I'm concerned, especially in the Southern California area. And we were talking about it last week, so I had to throw it up there.
Yeah, that is so cute.
But then there was, the tag team that I actually got to see in WoW was you and Heidi Howitzer. Obviously, Heidi's left WoW, but you guys still team up on the independents. You've been a part of a lot of solid tag teams. How is teaming with Gigi Gianni versus the other ladies you've teamed with in the past?
Gigi Gianni, actually that whole faction is just amazing. I was listening to another podcast that was talking about us the other day, and they said it seemed really nice to see when you have those promos where it just looks like everybody's genuine friends, like DX was like genuine friends and stuff like that. Like that is exactly us. And I think that's what really makes a good tag team or a good faction is that chemistry that you can't fake. You can't, like, you either like someone or you don't, and you see it or you don't. And it's the same thing when it comes to your tag partners, your factions, or your opponents. You either have that chemistry or you don't. And me with the alliance, when it comes to Gigi, Gambino, and BK, like we all just get along really well.
You've done studio wrestling before with Dave Marquez and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
What's the environment like? How different is it from, and I'm not asking you to throw down any stones on Dave or either of the Daves actually, but what's it different from going from, like Championship Wrestling from Hollywood? Ooh, wow. I know there's a lot more money involved in terms of everything, like the production and the look and show of it. But, I saw you backstage in Hollywood. I noticed that you were like looking at the cameras and watching, how they were producing the show. Is it similar to how WoW produces its show? No, completely different.
I mean, I think there's definitely always some similarities. Like one of my favorite things to do at Championship Wrestling or United Wrestling Network, either incarnation, is watching Dave Marquez call the cameras, like call the numbers. The cameras is, and I've talked about it with Ray Lynn, I've talked about it with other girls. Like this is like the most magical thing watching Dave Marquez do this. And aside from just watching him to watch Dave, it's also a learning thing. Like for me, professional wrestling isn't just me being a wrestler. It's learning everything I can about professional wrestling. And part of it was like calling the cameras. And granted, I have never done it. I have produced my own show, but I've never called cameras for studio production. And the way Dave Marquez does it is so magical.
It's one of the, like, and no one in the chat quite understands it, but this is where it's cool that I've actually been backstage a few times because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it, like, it's, when we're watching this finished product on TV, like, the camera changes and it gets that great angle and the camera changes over here and, hopefully they don't miss the dive. They don't miss the taunt or whatever it is that's going on in the ring. But in the back, you're hearing Dave Marquez screaming at the top of his lungs, like, camera 2, get in focus. Fuck, camera 3, go, go, go. It's so
I wanted
amazing.
to say that, but I didn't want to say it. But could I just say, like, could I do an impersonation of Dave Marquez right now?
Please.
Camera 4, cut to camera 4. Back to 2, back to 4. Get out that headspace. Back to 2. Get out 1, 4. Get out the headspace. Back to 2, 4. Get out that fucking headspace. It was just sorry that I had to curse, but that's like the. I don't think of curse words as curse words. I don't mind curse words, but I feel like that's like the passionateness of like knowing what your job is and wanting people to like, hey, take this seriously. Listen to me. I am trying to tell you what to do, and like that is like one of my favorite things. But sorry to digress from your question. Big difference. Obviously in size, in terms of production size, in terms of overall, like, I want to say overall presentation, but like one United Wrestling Network was very produced, but not as produced as, we are with my company now that I work for, mostly because, there's a lot more independent wrestling in United Wrestling Network than there is at WoW. We have to make sure that we're doing like our entrances like the correct way because there's certain lighting cues. And we got to make sure we have those lighting cues and we're where we need to be. And you could definitely see a big difference when people aren't hitting like their cues or their marks or something. vignettes, we don't just get a talk afterwards. We have to talk to a certain time. It's so Championship Wrestling obviously is produced, and WoW is also produced, but it's more time driven. And I really learned a lot from Dave and Championship Wrestling about time and making sure the time is right for the match, for the promos, for everything. Now it's even more important now. So thank God I was ever with Championship Wrestling.
That's cool. I think the world of Dave Marquez. I think you already know that. And I've never met Dave McClain, but I've only heard nice things about him. And I know that they're two very different products. Just even being in the audience for both shows, you could tell that one of them is produced in a different way than the other's produced. And I do kind of like it, and especially with the fact that WoW tapes a lot of the show in advance. In fact, I think you guys tape like a whole season in like 2 or 3 days, if I'm not mistaken. And
no,
it's
8 days.
8 days. My apologies.
We did a whole season in 8 days,
which is crazy if you think about it, because there's so many variables that could happen, and thankfully, knock on wood, nothing has been too damaging. But talent can sign elsewhere, talent can be released, there could be all
injuries.
Kinds of things.
There's so many things that could happen within 8 days that's going to affect an entire year.
Yeah, and then that person is like the NWA, they tape monthly, right? Or I guess every 2 months. If a wrestler gets hurt at a show, he won't be seen on TV for initially whatever was already filmed is already filmed, but then they'll be gone for almost a couple weeks. Whereas with WoW, if someone gets hurt and can't compete for the next 2 or 3 days, they're out for their season, and that could be pretty not damaging, but I guess that could have an effect on the talent and then storyline. You have to recreate storyline or
I think it is damaging for any wrestler that's in a position where they're wrestling for a show that airs on a regular basis. Just look at WWE. If someone tears an ACL, they're out for 9 months, 10 months, a year, depends, Yeah.
So I know that a lot of the women from WoW, some of them seem to exist only in that universe. I don't see them wrestle outside of the WoW ring. I obviously that doesn't apply to you, and I've seen some of the other talents work outside of the WoW universe as well. Is that by design? Do the talents that don't take dates outside of WoW, is that intentional, or is that just something that WoW wants to keep the talent in-house?
Because at WoW we're assigned to a contract. We actually have an exclusivity contract, so that it kind of inhibits, but it also depends, because we are also allowed to take bookings. So I don't it's weird to say we're on an exclusivity contract with WoW, but also we are also allowed to venture out. So for me, myself personally, I am not going to wrestle too much on the indies. I'll wrestle where I feel is fun, worthwhile, might do something for me personally or my tag team. Or if I get a tag with Heidi, do I get a tag with Heidi? I'm going to go.
That's awesome.
It's that sort of thing, because also you got to think about it when I'm in a position, or any of the girls around me are in a position where we're doing this really greatly amazing produced show. What happens if we go out to a random lucha show and then wound up tearing our ACL, or worse, breaking a leg, breaking something? Now we've put our position that we worked so hard to get to in jeopardy for for what?
Exactly. That's very understandable. And for me, recently I saw Scorpio Sky had some matches here in Los Angeles, which I'm super excited to see him getting back to it, because I know that in AEW he hasn't been on TV for a while. But then the kind of question comes are you jeopardizing what you have under contract right now? Or, does it outweigh the opportunity outweigh the potential for injury.
Right, exactly. And that's something I think about every time. And, we think about it, but I took a booking and I broke my finger. And guess what? My finger never healed right. Look at that. You see that? Yeah, never healed right. But you also do things on a regular basis. For example, Tiki Chamorro on our show, she does rugby, in her off time from WoW, and she messed up her knee really bad. I was at the gym and I was doing squats, and now I had to go get an MRI this morning with a potentially torn MCL. Like it's just, you try to protect yourself as much as you can, but life also still happens.
This is true. And in the blink of an eye, anything can happen. That's for sure. Going back to WoW, how did the pairing, and I know this is a few seasons back, but you've said so many positive things about Heidi, and you guys look awesome as a tag team. It was fun watching you guys live at WoW, but I've seen your guys' promos and stuff that you do on the indies. Like, how did that combination get together? How did you guys become a tag team, and how did that friendship envelop?
Oddly, from WoW, like I had met Heidi 2, maybe 3 times in Denver, and we didn't really talk much. One match, the first time I met her, me and Viperous had a match against her and someone else. I think Abaddon, actually. And I didn't like Heidi. Like, the first time I met her, I was like, oh, like she's not fun. And then the second time I met her is fine. And like the third time I met her actually was at WoW. I met her at WoW for the third time. And it was just one of those things where our first thing was a match against each other, and that flowed so well. And what happened was people saw us literally hanging around each other because we're both bad girls. We're both heels. So we're hanging around each other, and people saw us hanging around each other, and they liked the dynamic. And then we were randomly put together, and they loved the dynamic. And then, we're like, oh, we love it too. And it's great with Heidi because people, I don't know if enough people know that Heidi used to be a power lifter. So Heidi's strong. Like, Heidi is strong. And I like to think of myself as strong, but Heidi is strong. A lot of people don't know about me is I'm super athletic. I could do flippy stuff, and people don't understand that. So it's great to have someone where she could be the strong one because she's never really been the strong one in tags. And I could be the flippy one because I've never really been the flippy one in tags.
Where do you guys work mostly? Because I know it's infrequent.
Yeah, it's pretty infrequent. Lucha Vavoom, or Miss Rita's Lucha Vavoom, really loves us. Kitsune absolutely adores us. We're trying to get out to Triple L and stuff like that. It's just wherever we could put in our, where was it? Poder, the one they do in Las Vegas. We did there. Like, we just try to go wherever we can. And honestly, it's going to be mostly for funsies, unless we're doing somewhere like Kitsune where we could get like Tomoko Wanatabe and Sadie Gibbs, which is just like an amazing match for us to have. And that was like one of our first indie matches outside of WoW. So we're just trying to go wherever right now. And honestly, it's for fun. She's hurt too right now. So.
Yeah. I saw that. And after you guys started teaming, I followed her on X too, because I'm like, well, she's besties with besties. So I gotta support, right? And, some of her promos are just wild anyways. She's a lot of fun, but like I saw her, she's like, oh, I'm not going to be wrestling, but I'll be there to LOL. I'm like, well, that's cool. I'm still glad that she's getting out there and getting FaceTime. Taking this conversation a completely different direction now. I recently heard MJF say that if you aren't watching everything that's out there, you're not doing yourself any good. You're a fool is what he said. Do you keep that mentality as well? Are you watching all the other wrestling promotions out there, or do you at least try to keep up with what's going on out in wrestling besides what's happening in WoW and what's happening around you?
Was he talking to fans, or did he mean that?
No, he's talking about other wrestlers. He says, you hear MMA guys all the time talking about like, oh, I don't watch anything, I just train. And he goes, you're a fool. You're not learning anything. And I think it's impossible to watch everything. But
I think that's ridiculous. I think it's good to check in on the big shows such as WWE, AEW, or, you know, it's good to check in on the big shows. But here's the thing you got to understand, in my opinion, everybody is watching the big shows. So if something goes on that's hot on TV, you're probably going to see it hot on the loop. And then if you're watching that TV and you see that hot on the loop, you're probably doing it on too. And now, do you want to be like everybody else that's doing that same thing on the loop? Or do you want to be like your own person? This is why I do not watch absolutely everything. What I watch is what I choose to watch at a given point. Heck, we watched Halloween Havoc. I was at Heidi's house this weekend. We watched the NXT Halloween Havoc. And it was great. A lot of stuff on it was great. But then we watched like an old Halloween Havoc to like revisit what happened back in the day. For me, when it comes to wrestling, I do watch a lot of WoW because that's my company. So I want to see what everybody's doing because I cannot watch everything while I am there.
Right.
I can't watch the monitors constantly. So I do watch a lot of WoW. But on top of like watching a lot of WoW, I would watch Kingston. I'll pull up old Kingston. I pull up Johnny Saint. I pull up Tajiri. I pull up like the people that I love. And I think that wrestle more like I should wrestle rather than, you know, what use is it going to be of me to watch someone that's a female wrestler that's super tiny?
Right.
That might be on NXT or might be on AEW. Like I have, oh, cool, let me watch that and see all that cool stuff you're doing. It's nothing that I should be doing in the ring at this given point. There's no need.
You know, I think that's a good point. I think, you know, maybe if you asked him again, he would probably clarify, like, obviously you're not going to learn from people that are doing extremely different things than what you're going to do or what you should be doing. So I don't know. I heard it and I just thought since we're talking wrestling, that'd be a interesting question to ask, and I appreciated your answer. Thank you. Mm-hmm. With that being said, you're watching a little bit of NXT, you're watching a little bit of WoW, and obviously the big stuff. Is there anybody out there that you see in the world of wrestling that you're like, that person has it? I would like to face them. I would like to wrestle against them or share a ring with them in some form of capacity.
That's a female or a male?
Let's go female first, and then we'll go male next.
I think after this weekend, and I've never wrestled her on the indies, but I heard nothing but good about her. But I'm going to say her name wrong. Stephanie Vanker.
Yeah, Vanker.
Yeah, she looked absolutely stunning this weekend, especially at Halloween Havoc. In her tag match, that she's so on it with everything she does. And there's one thing I've always really appreciated in professional wrestling is having those white knuckle matches where someone's probably smaller than me and they're more spry than me. And I need to try to keep up with them now to make this match be what it has to be. I love that sort of stuff. And I think that would be a good one to have with her. That would be a fun white knuckle match for me.
One of the only time I've seen her live, I went down to TJ for the Promociones Lucha Libre, and she was taking on, it was like a CMLL type show, and she was taking on Tessa Blanchard. And I'm like, wow, this can be a banger, because, you know, whether you like Tessa or not, she's a fantastic wrestler. And I was expecting to see Tessa just mop the floor with her, and I was shocked and surprised and actually kind of giddy watching that match because, like, they went so hard. And, like, the thing about it too is, like, I understand in the dynamic of Lucha Libre, especially with Mexico, Tijuana is kind of considered on the outskirts, right? Because a lot of the touring is happening in you know, Mexico City and Juarez and Jalisco and everything else. And then Tijuana is just kind of over here by itself. And so they're just happy to have some of the stars, but they churned out for that match. And I was, Stephanie made a fan out of me that night for sure. So it was cool seeing that, and then seeing obviously her jump to the WWE. I'm very happy for her, and I can't wait to see more of what they have in store for her.
Yeah, right. If we could choose, like, from out of America too, like, definitely Tessa Blanchard. I had one match with her at WoW, and I absolutely adored that match. And I you know, I don't care what anybody thinks. I adore Tessa Blanchard. I think she has always been a great person to me and always has been really welcoming to me. So I would love to do one with her, especially now that she's, I don't know if I could keep up with her now. She's been doing so much in Mexico, and that Lucha Libre is just, wow. Yeah, I've seen some of her stuff, and I would love to have another go around with her. Maybe not necessarily Lucha Libre. I don't know if I can keep up with her there.
So then that begs a question with Tessa, and I'm not expecting you to speak for the entirety of pro wrestling, but do you think she'll ever get another opportunity in the U.S.?
I mean, she's been wrestling in Texas. She's been wrestling, you know, around on the lucha circuit. For me, for life, I want to never say never.
Right.
Because I don't know. I think, I don't know. And I don't even know all the particulars of what happened. So I don't want to speak to that. But I'd have a go with her. Like, I'd have a go with her in America. I'd have a go with her in California. I don't know. Like, the fact that La Rosa Negra even was still like, yeah, we're cool now. Like, that's fine with me. So I hope so. I hope so, because I feel like Tessa Blanchard is really good, and she did a lot of good for intergender wrestling, especially when it comes to Impact and TNA. So
she was when they brought her into WoW, I think a lot of people started looking differently at WoW, because when she came into WoW, that was after her time as Impact Men's World Champion. So it was like, no, I'm wrong. I have it backwards.
Wait, she was here. She was in WoW before then.
I thought it was after.
Okay. She was in WoW before I was in WoW, and she was the champion at TNA after I was in WoW.
All right, then I guess I got my story wrong here. Regardless, she was kind of a big deal when she came into WoW, even before that, and a lot of people started taking WoW a lot more seriously after that because of her reputation of what she was able to do on the independents, not TNA wrestling. Read the wrong notes somewhere, I guess. But I mean, and then the influx of talent from WoW. I mean, it's not just, you know, and I'm going to try to use my words correctly. It's not just models; it's actual wrestlers. And I know that some of the talent comes directly from the independents, and I know they do some scouting talents, and some of the talents do come from modeling agencies or have backgrounds in sports outside of pro wrestling. But I feel like now more so than ever, WoW feels like a mix of pro wrestling and you know, people who are learning wrestling on the job. Would that be a fair statement?
So I started with WoW back in 2019, and when I started with WoW, it was a lot of Impact or TNA. I don't know which. Sorry, I'm not going to remember what 2019 was. Girls. So we had Tessa, we had Reina Reyes. What was her name? Giselle.
Yeah.
You know, we had a bunch of Impact girls and stuff, and Tessa, she was at TNA at that time because she was part of that group. So that I felt like back in 2019 there was actually a lot of independent wrestlers, and when I looked back on my Facebook and my comments and stuff like that, it was very much like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing tonight. I got to wait and see what they're going to post, like what my matches are, which is very opposite of what they would do if there's, obviously you can't give someone who's a model and be like, hey, tonight, this is what you're doing. Not saying you can't do it, but at the get-go, this is not something you're going to do. Currently, I think in my head, I went through what our roster was, and we have actually a lot of independent female wrestlers. We do also have people who have started off as actresses or models or comedians. Tiki, you know, she comes from rugby, but we actually do have a lot of independent wrestlers, and we got even more this season. I feel like right now we're currently tipping more towards independent females than we do with non. And that's not to say that these women who have trained, who have come from acting or other sports, they've been training for, 2 years or something now. Like, you should definitely consider yourself a professional wrestler, because at the same point, not saying that you're a tenured vet or anything like that, but
sure,
you've been doing this for a year, 2 years, you've been going through the bumps, you've been going through your training, and you've been going through matches on TV. Like, you're a professional wrestler in addition to whatever you are.
Right. And I do want to get back to the question about who you'd like to step into the ring with the men on the men's side of it. But you just brought up a good point. Like, we're seeing, WWE, obviously the largest wrestling corporation on the planet. And they just today announced the WWE ID, which is going to be an independent wrestling development. And they've already actually selected a few promotions. Seth Rollins' promotion, I think that's in Iowa, I'm not entirely sure. Booker T's Reality of Wrestling in Houston. Hell, even locally for us, Rikishi's Knox Pro in Los Angeles. All of these will be basically the same concept of that independent development that they had years ago with Ohio Valley and Florida Championship Wrestling.
SCW, yeah.
Even UPW here in Southern California. So I feel like they're doing kind of both now, where they're that next in line idea, where they're literally going after talents, athletes, from Division I schools, football players, cheerleaders, gymnasts, rugby players, MMA fighters, and they're pulling from that. And now they're going back to like, hey, there is a lot of value out on the independents as well. Let's start pulling those in. I think it's very telling if that's what the WWE is doing. I think it's pretty awesome that it sounds like WOW is already kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to their recruitment of talent.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really weird because there are the casting calls, which look very much like actors and actresses, actresses and models casting calls. But at the same time, there's no negation for girls that are actually independent wrestlers. There's never been. When I came into WOW in 2019, it was at the suggestion of another independent wrestler who was already on the roster. And they'll listen to us. They do listen to us like, hey, who should be here? And who should be here. When you see someone on the indies, you're character driven, but you're also a really good wrestler. You're probably good for WOW. Like, someone like Sage Sin would be amazing at WOW. Auntie Heidi would be amazing at WOW. Like, those two come off to my head because they're so character driven, but they're also good wrestlers and they're good storytellers. And that's what exactly we need. The fact that we could still take up independent wrestlers, but also pick up someone like Pep Riley, who is originally a stunts girl, and now she's a professional wrestler. Tiki Chamorro, who is a rugby player, and actress, and now she's a professional wrestler. That stuff is just mind-blowing to me, and I think it's amazing. And that's, in my head, what's really unique about WOW. And I'm so excited this year that I've actually gotten to wrestle some WOW girls for the first year.
That's really cool. We'll get to the other question, because I got lots of questions for you. That's the fun thing is, I think it's fair to say that we're friends, right? I'm not speaking out of burn, but I don't talk wrestling with you all the time. We talk about life stuff, so it's kind of fun to talk to you about wrestling. Mm-hmm. With that being said, let's get to the question about who on the men's side of wrestling.
It's Eddie Kingston, 100%. 100% Eddie Kingston. And there's no way that you could look at the way Eddie wrestles or the way I wrestle and say that wouldn't be a really Jacob Fatu as well. That wouldn't be really like wish list match for me.
I've always thought very highly of Jacob Fatu. The moment where they showed him on Raw standing next to Braun Breaker, and I just thought, holy shit, that's the future of the WWE right there. Like, that shot of those two guys, I'm like, that's going to be amazing. I can't wait till that happens. And then Eddie Kingston, man, what can you say about that guy? He is, I think when you use the term in wrestling, like legitimacy, right? Like authenticity. I don't know that you can find anyone in professional wrestling more authentic than Eddie Kingston. I don't think that's a gimmick. I think that's just who he is as a person. And like I'm here for it, right? Like you guys, I'll be honest, it'll be weird seeing you in a match with Eddie Kingston because you guys aren't going to pull any punches. It's going to be pretty fucking brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, I always have that big brother mentality. Like, I don't want to see my sister, get punched in the face, but that's certainly what's going to happen. And I'm sure you'll punch him right back in the face.
Yeah, it was him and Jacob Fatu, and Eddie I've never shared any remote part of the ring with, but Jacob I have. And, at PCW, there was my boys, me, Danny Limelight, Slice Boogie, and Popo that were like kind of button heads with Jacob and
Warbeast.
Sheik and Warbeast. So it was at one given point supposed to come to fruition that we were going to do a 3-on-3, and that didn't happen. And then aside of that, me and Jacob wanted to wrestle. And like I think I told you once before, we were supposed to wrestle. We were offered a spot at NorCal, and it was like it wasn't able to be done. Not for anything on them. It was like our schedules didn't match to do it. So that's sad. And now he's in WWE, which is not sad. That is awesome to see him there.
It's one of those things, and I feel like this is everybody. Like, you're so happy to see these talents, and for you, I'm going to say friends. You've seen these people that you've spent time with, you've shared rings with, you've shared stories, car rides, all this stuff, and they make it to that level. And let's be honest, like the WWE, whether you like the product or not, that is the pinnacle of pro wrestling. That is the measuring stick of success. If you make it to the WWE, you've made it, and nobody can take that away from you. And I'm not saying that there isn't other avenues of success out there, but I'm saying like that is like once you've made it to the WWE, you've made it. And so you're happy for that success, but at the same time, you're like, well, I don't get to see my friends anymore, and I kind of see the bittersweet part of that because it's like, like you said, Jacob Fatu probably won't be working very many indie dates anymore.
No, but it was great. Like Mania Weekend, I got to run into him at Mania Weekend in Philly and got to say hi because the only time me and Jacob see each other are on the road or somewhere that we're, who knows? We're never in the same spot. We're in some different states. It's never, consistent except for PCW. Yeah. But it was great to see him then. And then apparently he knew by then. And so to see him a couple months later doing that, it made my heart happy because I think every time anybody saw Jacob, he's so athletic and he's so good. And he's such a great, for everything. He's a great person, a great human, a great wrestler, a great brother, a great everything. So it's awesome to see him where he is now.
The first time I saw him live, and I've heard about him, but I was excited to see him because literally 10 minutes away from my house is the Paris Fairgrounds in Lake Paris. And Knox Pro did a Samoan Dynasty type show where literally Rocky Johnson was there. All the living members of that Samoan Dynasty were there. Rikishi was there. Cepho was there. Solo. Everyone was there. Anyone that except for the Usos because they were signed. And seeing Jacob there. And I had heard all this great stuff about him. And these were in a battle royal type match where he did not have to go hard. And my guy went so hard in that match. I was like, I get it. I get why everyone loves this dude. He's so amazing in the ring. And it was just it was a battle royal. It was honestly, take it easy. Nope. He was Jacob Fatu in that match, and it was awesome to see it.
Accurate.
Yeah. So with that being said, then anyone who follows you on social media, especially on Instagram, we see you doing a lot of, it looks like production work at home. Are you doing stuff for WoW in terms of production or
production work? I don't know what you're talking about. I do a lot of social media.
Okay. Then maybe I'm misguided. I probably should have
no, I really like to do a lot of I haven't really talked about it with anything, but I like to do a lot of editing and storytelling and video making and filmmaking. And so my whole setup has to deal with trying to produce something. And I think at the end of the day, I'm looking also out for myself when it comes to the end of professional wrestling, when it comes to the end of everything I'm doing, what am I going to do? And I really like directing. I really like editing. I love storytelling, and I'll do videos for pretty much anything or anyone. I feel like I could tell a good story with anything I'm given. So I try to do that. And I try to do that a lot with like going out to boogie boarding competitions, going out to wrestling shows, going to my life. I don't know. Let's make it cinematic. Let's tell a story about it, because if you really think about it, all of life is nothing but storytelling.
I might have asked you this before. Are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay. I love Gary V, and he is actually part of the reason why I even do this live stream now. We used to do like an audio podcast. It's like, nope, got to get in front of the camera, got to get your face out there. So I've always tried to be about that, right? And one of the things he said that has stuck with me is that everybody is a character in this story that we call life, and everybody has a story to tell, and everybody is, your aunt who makes cookie recipes that she shares on Facebook, like she is a character. She is telling her story. And I thought that was so like awesome and beautiful. And I wish more pro wrestlers, comedians, musicians kind of took that mentality. Like, look, your music is just one part of who you are. Your wrestling is just one part of who you are. You have a story to tell it. And I feel like people will connect more with the person than they will the performer. Like, hey, I can love your wrestling and I can love, I can love your music or whatever it is, but like, let me connect with you as a person. And like, now you got a fan for life.
I think that's what a lot of fans want. And ironically, I think that's what COVID and the pandemic and the shutdown gave us a lot of opportunities to do. Not a lot of people took that chance. Not a lot of people were able or willing to show what their life was outside of professional wrestling. And when I say this, and I'm talking about this, I'm talking about a very California, SoCal point of view, because in Florida, they kept wrestling. In the mid-states that kept, like Texas, they kept wrestling. When I talk to like Penelope Pink, Marina Tucker, they don't quite understand that in California, we completely shut down. Yeah. What I had for 12 years of my life was now taken away from me. What am I going to do now? And I had always told myself, when I can't wrestle anymore, I'm going to go back to surfing, because I grew up bodyboarding, and now we're in a pandemic. I can't wrestle anymore. Let me go back to surfing, which I did. And I, immersed myself in that culture again, but on a more serious level, and try to learn tricks, learn how to do things, learn not just riding the whitewater, but, sorry, I digress. When it comes to telling your life and your story, like I started putting out videos that were like whole surf experiences and like what I'm doing now that I'm not in the ring. And that connected me to a whole new group of people that, started following me and started wanting to see what I'm doing. And my professional wrestling fans were excited to see this sort of stuff. So I still want to go on and do this. And honestly, what sucks is that I love seeing my vision on the screen, but I want to be in front of it as well. I want to be in front of the camera.
You want a star?
It's so hard to do both at the same time.
I get that. I get that too. Sometimes I think I would make a better podcast producer than I do a podcast host, like, oh yeah, we can have everything pop up on the screen, but I can't do that all at the same time. So I stick to just doing a half-assed job of both and call it a day. So I have to talk NWA, because this is an NWA themed podcast. And there's been times where you've had matches with NWA talents, and in the past, you've even wrestled in NWA rings in the past. Tell me about your experience with, were you working with Dave when he was a member of NWA Hollywood, or was that predated you?
That might have predated me for when I came around to Championship or Hollywood or whatever you want to call it. That may have predated me. When I started working for Championship Wrestling, I had gone to the shows. because Bateman was working there, and at that given point, I was, engaged to Bateman, so I'd go to support, and I'd go to the shows, and I would sit there for the shows, and I'd sit there for the shows, and he didn't have any females on the shows, and I sat there for the shows repeatedly. And this is what I call the long con. So I was like, if I keep coming here, eventually they're gonna have to book me. They're gonna have to see that, hey, that's a professional wrestler. And lo and behold, one day I was at the show, and Dave Marquez was like, Can I talk to you for a minute? And Dave
did he get on his tippy toes a little bit when he said it?
A little bit on the tippy toes. And he told me how he wanted to bring in female wrestling because the internet told him he needed female wrestling. I do these hands because these are Dave hands.
Yeah.
So he needed professional wrestling, and he wanted me to come in and work for him. And he brought in Ashley Grace and, Kimura and a couple other girls because he wasn't very familiar with the female wrestling landscape. And so that was my long con to get into championship wrestling. Straight away from your question, but I don't think that we were NWA at the time. I think we were already championship wrestling.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. With that being said, last week in the chat, you had mentioned that you had shared a ring with NWA Women's Champion Kenzie Page. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of who some of the other talents you might have shared a ring with. I know that you've worked with Mission Pro, who's had ties in the past to the NWA. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Are you familiar with the roster, the National Wrestling Alliance women's roster? And I
am familiar with the roster. One thing we probably never touched on is I actually had a shot at the NWA Women's Championship when I wrestled Jazz in Texas.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
When was this?
What is the lion guy, the guy from Texas? What? Tiger King?
Oh, yes. Okay.
He was still doing commentary. He was doing commentary for the show, and I wrestled Jazz in Texas for the NWA Women's Championship 2015, 2016.
Do you think that was Texoma Wrestling?
It was Texoma. It was Texoma Pro that I wrestled her at. And it was for the NWA Women's Championship. The Tiger guy was on commentary. This is such a wild story when I'm thinking about it.
There's pictures of him holding the NWA at the time North American Championship with Tim Storm, who at the time was the North American champion, and it was just like at the time nobody knew about this guy, right? Like nobody in California knew about this nature preserve guy who's working with wrestling shows, and then that documentary comes out and it's like, what the hell is all of this?
Yeah, literally it was
Joe Dirt, something like that.
Joe Tiger, yeah. Oh my god, I'm gonna forget his name, but it was literally someone from Oklahoma that messaged me and told me that it's Tiger King, whatever. I don't know what his name is. I didn't watch the show. I'm so sorry, but that he was doing commentary for us at Texoma when I was there, and Bateman was there, and a couple of our friends were there doing shows. Yeah. So I've actually wrestled for the NWA Women's Championship before.
That's dope. I got to go find that match now. Michelle, what was Tiger King's name? Joe Tiger? What the Tiger King? What was that guy's name? You don't remember either. Everyone just calls him Tiger Guy.
Yeah, Tiger Guy, Tiger King.
Tiger King. So the women's division now, I mean, you've got obviously Joe Exotic.
Yes.
And Trek just got it too. The NWA's women's division it's like a mixed bag because I feel like the talent that they have is very good. Just they don't have a lot of people on the roster, a lot of females on the roster. So they have Maxine Paler, who's currently holding the men's division championship, but also is competing in both men and women's wrestling, non-binary. You also have the women's world champion, Kenzie Page, the tag team champions, the It Girls, Samantha Starr, Ella Envy, and they just crowned the TV champion in Chicago a few weeks ago with Big Mama. And you had mentioned that you had stepped in the ring with Big Mama. Mm-hmm. How was that experience? And what do you think of her as a performer, as a wrestler?
Back when I wrestled Big Mama, she was still very new, and that was very much impressed on me that hey, you're wrestling a really new girl here. But the thing was, this was for Rise, and Rise was very much about elevating females that were new or females that need to be elevated that have not been elevated. And so the fact that they came into Southgate at AWS and they wanted me to drop a fall to Big Mama, the promoter took very seriously, and I'm glad he did, because AWS was my home for a long time. AWS was very much what made me who I am. And considering as green as she was, I thought I had a really good match with her when I went back and I watched it when we were talking last week.
Yeah.
It was a good match, in my opinion. I think the best part was that she was very open and very willing to listen and be receptive. And I almost feel like I was a better wrestler back then because I was wrestling so much back then. So it was really nice to do. I wish I was wrestling that much right now, but she was super nice. I know she dropped out of wrestling for a while and she came back recently, so I have not seen any of her recent matches.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I feel like NWA is very much also into character-driven stuff, much like WoW. And I think that Big Mama fits very well into that category. And she could wrestle to her character and she could wrestle to her size.
I had this crazy idea, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I talked to some people, and they almost made it sound believable. Before the NWA debuted on the CW, I guess a lot of the people who were involved with Billy's Carneyland, docuseries, were also working on WoW, and I had mentioned it to a few people in the NWA, and they're like, I don't think it's going to happen. And Mecha Wolf, somebody I absolutely love to death in the business, I think he's awesome. He's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And he was a little overserved at that point. And we were talking, and he goes, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you can bring all the WoW women over, and all the NWA women can go over there. And I'm like, yeah, we were egging each other on at this point. I think when I saw you and Heidi team, I thought, man, you guys would be a perfect fit for the NWA, a wrestling promotion that definitely lacks women's tag teams. There's talented females there. I'm not trying to say that the women that they have are not talented. I just feel like the depth isn't there, and they have a tag team division with like 2 or 3 tag teams, and sometimes more, but for the most part, 2 or 3 tag teams. I'm like, oh man, it would be so cool if there was a crossover. And I know you can't speak to that, but it would be cool if there was a crossover and having, talents from WoW appear in the NWA and vice versa. I don't think it would hurt either brand, and I could only see it helping both brands. What do you think about that?
Would I like to see it versus would it happen is completely two different things. Like, would I like to see it? I think I would like to see WoW branch out and do stuff with a lot of promotions. Like, you have someone like Kitsune that brings in a bunch of great Japanese female wrestlers here to Southern California. There's no reason why we're not collabing with them, especially when they were here in August and we were filming in August. NWA, I don't know, Stardom, like there's Mission. There are a lot of spots that it would be great to collab with them, but I think at the end of the day, when you look at, like, I don't want to say cost benefit analysis, but like who's exactly benefiting from what,
right?
That's where there's going to be discrepancies. So if you have someone random promotion A that's only ever done independent shows and never really got over 200 people per show, and then they want to collab with someone like WoW who has like what they have, that's hard to see where is the benefit to WoW to bring in someone like that.
Right.
But you have someone like NWA who does pull some numbers. They have, good viewership and stuff like that. and then you have WoW too. Like that seems like it would be more of a fit than a random spot here in Southern California or anywhere in the United States.
Right.
Personally, like I said, when I see WoW and who we could collaborate with, I feel like with NWA, they see that would be more of a competition than a collab. Like I can see them more competing with each other and collaborating with each other. But if you see someone like I would love Marvelous, who comes here with Kitsune, that would make a good collab with WoW, especially because it's Southern California.
Yeah.
I could wish for everything when it comes to female wrestling that we could all get along and try to all just elevate female professional wrestling as a whole. But I feel like it's always going to come down to someone trying to do that almost by themselves rather than trying to collab.
Right. And I think that's, unfortunately, I think that's, we live in a capitalistic society, and you do have to, as a business owner myself, like, yeah, I'd love to work with other businesses, but what's the ROI? Like, where am I going to make my money? Is this going to grow my brand? In that case, maybe. But again, that's also, there's no definitive with that either. There's no real measurable, like, did we get more viewers because of this? Did we get more ticket sales because of this? Are we selling more merchandise because of this? And that data is kind of, you have to do it before you can have that. So it's one of those things where you have to try it before you can know if it's going to work or not. And that's, again, at a grander stage, NWA and WoW. And I think you're right that they are more competition, because I think you guys are still fighting for the same eyeballs, right? Like, there's only so much wrestling anybody can watch, and there's so many hours of content that's being produced every week. WWE's got like 6 hours of content every week. AEW's got like 4 hours of content every week. And then you factor in TNA and MLW and NWA and WoW and United Wrestling Network.
Well, let's consider this. When we're right now, we're splitting hairs about professional wrestling and grading eyeballs, but we're not talking about specific demographics. And when we're talking about specific demographics, then we're looking at something completely different. Sure. Because the people who are watching AEW aren't the people that are watching WoW. The people that are watching WoW aren't the people that are watching WWE, and the people that are watching WWE probably aren't watching the NWA. So we're all competing for certain demographics, and I feel like AEW and WWE, or more probably precisely NXT, are competing for the same demographics, whereas WoW and NWA are competing for their demographics, which are different.
This is true.
That's where I'm saying, like, this is more of a competition, in my opinion, when it comes to WoW versus NWA than it is a collaboration, because we have the same audience size, the same audience demographics. And we all know, sorry, I'm going to go off a tangent. We all know professional wrestling in general has the demographics, the 18 to 40 demographics. We are mid to lower income, yada, yada. We're not necessarily scholarly. We're not necessarily grad school. This is our demographics. When it comes to someone like NWA or WoW, our demographics shift. Now we're looking at an older crowd. We're looking at more of we've been there, done that, tenured people, probably more middle income, probably more older range. So when you think about collaboration versus competition, this is where I get the NWA versus WoW, because the people that are 18 years old do not remember NWA, and they don't remember the territory days. The people that are looking at NWA now are mostly the people that do remember that stuff, which are the older demographics, which lays with WoW, because WoW came from Glow back in the day.
This is like a master class. You guys pay attention, take notes. You're learning something here. No, you're 100% right. And I try to speak more generally because I don't have that kind of information. I don't know, but you bring up a good point. Like, if you are a fan of the NWA at this point in 2024, you probably are a fan of the NWA from when either you were a child or at least a few decades removed, and you're following the brand because of the nostalgia and the novelty of it all. And similarly with WoW, it has its resurgence, but WoW, I think, formed in the mid to early 90s.
I would say WoW formed when Glow formed.
They were, so I always thought that WoW was kind of like the heir apparent to Glow. I'm not correct.
We are. I mean, David McLean was WoW. David McLean is was Glow, is WoW was Glow. Granted, the ownership was different back in the day, but now you have WoW as an incarnation of Glow. And if you think about it, it's the same sort of scenario. Independent wrestlers as well as actresses, models, and stuff like that, that they are training in the WoW facility, where back in the day they were training in the Glow facility. You know, it's the same thing. It's just a different generation.
Yeah. And it's funny because you mentioned like competing eyeballs, or I mentioned competing eyeballs. You broke down the demographic, but when I was a kid, there was never enough wrestling anywhere. So like I would, I'm LA based, you're LA based. We would watch Superstars on, Channel 11, and then turn to Glow on Channel 13, and stay up late and watch Channel 56 and maybe see California Championship Wrestling and then I was one of those kids that would go through all the channels and stumble upon Telemundo and see like Lucha Libre AAA and the Ninja Turtles. I'm like, I'm hooked. Whatever this is, I'm into, and I don't even speak Spanish, but this is great. And I kind of feel like there is that demographic as well as people who just want to see pro wrestling in any of its facets. And I think, to me, this is Jason, not Jay. This is the fanboy who's like, yeah, I'll watch anything, and I'll give anything a chance because I think it's all has value in some shape or form. But yeah, that's a very interesting point. How you kind of broke down like the nostalgia part of the NWA, the nostalgia part of WoW. Yes, you guys are similarly sharing the same audience.
Yeah, you could read about the territory days, you could read about the NWA and how, AWA, NWA, this and that, but it was a different thing if you grew up watching it. And same thing for me. I grew up watching Glow as an itty bitty. And so when it comes to Glow, I expect, we're looking at older demographic because WoW is like Glow was. And my big time with the WWE, when I watched it the very most, was at the Divas era. It was at the Attitude era, like this and that. That's where I watched it the most. And so I could guarantee you, if we come back around to that sort of era, me and my whole age range are going to come back and watch WWE in hordes. Not saying that they're lacking for any sort of audience, but it would be in hordes.
So and we kind of went off topic, but let's go back a little bit, looking at the NWA women's division. I mean, what do you think the job that Kenzie Page has done as world champion, and what, like, you've stepped in the ring with her, what do you think of her as a wrestler?
The only time I've stepped in the ring with Kenzie Page as a wrestler, she was, it was a couple years back, so she was younger as she was now, but she was very understanding and she was very knowledgeable about what her role in this match was. It was me, her, and a guy. And she, in my opinion, was very willing, very giving, very unselfish in what she did because she understood where she was in the match. That being said, where she is now is also very knowledgeable of who she is and what she's doing. And I think that's one of the great things about her, that some people, I'm not saying everybody, some people don't understand who they are, and sometimes when you have a match, what the match is actually for. And that's some things that I've had to say a couple times my entire career, is what this match is about. Not every match is about you. But when the match is about you, it needs to be about you. And I think she gets that sort of thing. Like, she understands who she is in the match. She understands her role in the match, and she does what she needs to be in that position. And that's what makes her a great player for anything that she does. And she is willing to take the bumps, and she's willing to take the hits. Like I said, when I put our match out, I really admired her moxie. Like, she had the gumption to sit there and I might kick you in the back. I might slap you. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll just see what goes. That's the sort of stuff that I like. That's, I came in from Bateman. That's the sort of stuff that was taught to me. So it's that old school mentality that we're going to go out there and we might beat each other up, and, we'll be great at the end. And I think she has that. And I think she has that understanding. And, you know, I can't speak to how she is with people now, but when I wrestled her, she was very giving and very understanding of all of this.
Well, and you know, I'm not a biographer here or anything, but I know that she comes from wrestling. Her dad owned Crossfire Wrestling in, I'm gonna always mispronounce it, Sevierville, Tennessee, and her and her sister now run that promotion, and yeah, and it's pretty cool. Like she's the first NWA territory in this modern era to be female owned, so that's kind of cool. Another props for Kenzie and Kylie, the Henry sisters, and I know that they do a lot of mixed wrestling out there as well, where they'll definitely have Kenzie and her sister Ella, not her sister Ella, her tag team partner Ella took on the Carnies. Are you familiar with the Carnies?
Yeah, I know who the Carnies are.
Yeah, they did some mixed tag matches, and they've routinely done mixed tag wrestling at Crossfire. In fact, that might be a place where I don't know if you're taking dates. I don't know, maybe you and Heidi could end up at some point down the road.
I think the fact that she has that sort of pedigree behind her, or any sort of training like that, is amazing. And I think that's what a lot of people need. I hate to sound anti-feminist and say that we need training with men, but we do need training with men at the same time, because the fact of the matter is, professional wrestling is who you're wrestling. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or girl, because when you're going through training, you should be wrestling with guys. When you're going through training, you should be wrestling with girls. You should be wrestling with non-binary. You should be wrestling with all the genders, because you never know what's going to pop up in a match. When you go through training as a female, and probably I'm going to use Kenzie as someone Kenzie's size, you're probably going to get your butt whooped a lot. When you go through female training as someone my size, you're going to get your butt whooped to a degree. But now I need to know what it's like to get my butt whooped someone bigger than me. I don't get my light anymore. Cool.
That's all right.
You need that multidimensional training to make you a rounded person, and a lot of people don't get that, especially if they're training with like only females. It's something, it's special when you could train with everybody from every size.
And it's funny because, like, you know, I know there is a portion of the audience that doesn't like intergender wrestling. There's some of them even in the chat right now. But I feel like with wrestling, it's like there is so many different styles of wrestling and different ways to do wrestling. And not every single form of wrestling is going to appeal to every single member of the audience. Like, I go to Game Changer Wrestling and I'm like, well, I don't need to see 100 doors get wrecked in a match, but that's kind of what they're going to give you. You know, if you want to watch more traditional style of wrestling, then the NWA is kind of, but you see, even the NWA is adopting to including, you know, Max, who's non-binary. They've had more intergender matches, I think, in the last year than they've had probably in its entirety leading up to it. I mean, and not just Max, but Natalia Markova's had intergender matches, and they've done a lot of different styles of wrestling with that too. So I think it's very interesting. You know, we don't live in a singularity anymore. There's multiple flavors and multiple opportunities to enjoy whichever wrestling you want to enjoy. I think that's a great thing about pro wrestling, is that it's limitless.
Yes. God, I wish I could really impart onto people how I feel about professional wrestling when it comes to intergender wrestling. But at the same time, I have a very big chip when it comes to intergender wrestling, where intergender wrestling, words are hard. Intergender wrestling needs to be done right to be accepted. And often it is not done right.
Yeah. I will still say this, and anyone reading the chat, if you like Raze and you would like to see her in some pretty brutal matches, go check her out with Bad Dude Tito. That one was you guys went balls out on that one. No pun intended there, but it was pretty intense and just a night at the office for you. But for me, I was like, oh crap, you guys looked like it was pretty hardcore.
Yeah, that was actually exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, Willie Mack. That was probably my favorite. Was Willie Mack.
I was there for that one too. I didn't see the one with you and you mentioned earlier, and I can't remember who you said, but I didn't see that one. But I did see you with Willie Mack, and I did see you with Tito. I used to like Tito because of that. I was like, man, you went too hard on that one. No, Tito's great. I love that guy.
I'm never asking for any quarter from any guy. I wrestled Brody King. I wrestled. I've wrestled so many heavy hitters, and that's been my favorite. It's when you're 5'9" and over 200 pounds as a female wrestler, you don't really get a whole lot of chances to meet other females your size in the ring because they're usually about 5'5" and a lot less. So, yeah, it was great.
It seems like, at least on the indies, that when it comes to women's wrestling, it's a lot smaller style of wrestlers. And I mean, until recently, we could say former NWA Women's Champion Camille. I mean, she was as big as they come, but that wasn't an everyday occurrence. There wasn't a lot of independent wrestlers who are built like Camille or built like yourself. I think you guys are kind of a rare breed. So when it does come to wrestling, it's kind of hard to match up somebody for a hard hitting fight when, if you're much bigger than the person you're wrestling, like what story, unless it's a David and Goliath type story, what story can you really tell with that?
There really isn't a lot. And I think that's always, a lot of companies and a lot of promotions issue with me is like, what do? We have this girl that's 5'9" and over 200 pounds. Like, our whole women's division is like below 5'5". What are we going to do with her? And like, I can only monster mash so many girls before they're like, oh, well then we don't need you. What are we going to do with you? We don't need you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys have all filmed WoW up for the 2024 season. When do you guys go back into production? Have you discussed that yet? Do you guys know?
I couldn't tell you. I would only guess August 2025.
Wow,
that would be my guess. But you know what? Honestly, it's great for me because, like I said, MRI today, something's torn, something needs to get fixed. So it's good for me. But we filmed 1 year, and hopefully our plan is to start going weekly. So if we go weekly, then we have more of a chance to either travel or take up somewhere else. And I think that would be really good for us. To go weekly would be amazing because then we are not doing so much at once. We don't have to put so much toll on our body.
Yeah.
But also, I think going weekly gives us a better chance to lay out bigger storylines and get through more because, like we said, if you get injured from the get-go, then everything just changed.
And I know you guys filmed at the Balasso before, but you didn't film at the Balasso the last time, right?
No, we did East End Studios in Glendale, California, which honestly, I feel like this ramped up our production tenfold because
it looks great.
The Belasco was basically limited to our size and what we could put in there. Meanwhile, we go to East End Studios and we had a huge studio, which, I don't know, as you've seen the pictures, our entrances were like huge. Now we got pyro. Now we got this. Now we got that. Now we have like a whole big sections to put cameras and to put audience and put like it. When I say this is the epitome of studio produced wrestling, it is, and it's freaking glorious and it's gorgeous.
Do you feel like WoW may transition into more of a live event type style of production, or do you feel like they're still looking at doing the TV studio type style of wrestling?
No, if we go weekly, we're definitely going live. That's I mean, weekly would be like the baby step before live.
Yeah.
Once you're going weekly, it's like a little half step to go live. And the only, I don't see any reason why we couldn't go live, especially with the way that they're training the girls now. There shouldn't be a reason why we can't go live. That would be amazing. Or at least go weekly. If for nothing else, do a year of going weekly before we go live.
I mean, a year of going weekly would still be pretty intense. I mean, again, you said 8 days for a season, 52 weeks. That's freaking awesome. That's pretty. The NWA isn't even going 52 weeks live or 52 weeks weekly. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty ambitious, but I think the payoff would be definitely worth it.
I mean, WWE does weekly, AEW does weekly. The only you need to do weekly when we come to our TV show is at least 4 matches, if not 3. Pre-tape promos to go into the between segments. I think we could do it. I honestly think we could do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the biggest thing is the demand and supply. Like if you have the supply, it doesn't take a whole lot to I mean, I say that because it's not my money, but like obviously it takes a lot of money too. But if people are demanding it, I mean, yes, you probably could do it live. And I don't not live, but I mean weekly. Live is a different story because there's a lot more involved with going live. Is the primetime live series that Dave was doing, that first episode, that's the first time they did live anything, and there was a lot of tech snafus, and that caused a lot of problems for them. But that's how it goes sometimes.
I feel like that would be the big one. When you say tech, like that would probably be the biggest one. And for anybody that's watching that's ever done a wrestling show, you should know that there's a lot of things to do I used to produce a wrestling show, and you got to consider camera angles. You got to consider where the audience is sitting. You got to consider the lights. You got to, in conjunction with the camera and who is running commentary and who's doing, timing and who's doing this. There's a lot of considerations when you go weekly if you're going live. Yeah. If we could do a day or 2 before so we could fix things, that would be great. But yeah, I think that's a dream, and then that would be amazing for us. Can it happen? Can we do it with the production? I don't know. We'll see. We're still so much when you think about we're still in infantry coming compared to like WWE.
Yeah, and I think everybody is. It's like they've been doing it for like 50 years pretty consistently, where everyone else is just like, oh, we're going to try this out. I mean, think about it. In the United States, the second longest running wrestling company, the national company, would be like TNA.
Yeah,
and that's crazy to think about that too. It's like I don't know. Like I try to temper my expectations even when it comes to the NWA, and everyone that knows I'm a huge NWA fanboy, and I want to see them succeed. But like anyone who thinks that the NWA is on the same level as the WWE or TNA or AEW, obviously, like no, they're not. Do they have potential? Yes, but realizing that potential is, it's a completely different story.
Yeah, studio wrestling is a beast in and of itself, and being able to control every asset. Like let's go back to the beginning, like Dave Marquez sitting in the chair calling numbers. Like it's there's so much behind it, and I don't think people understand exactly how much is behind it.
Yeah. You did a pretty good impression of him, by the way, too. All right. Well, I think we're getting close to wrapping up the show for today, but I want to make sure that we plug everything that you're doing, and I'll edit the video description later so we can put links to all of your socials. But if you want to plug them now or plug anything, let's do it.
I guess just plug myself. I don't really post too much. Razor Pops on everything. That's RAZERPOPS. Unless your Instagram, then it's POPZ. But yeah, I have a whole YouTube channel with a bunch of wrestling matches. I have my Instagram. My X or Twitter, which is seriously lacking because the algorithm sucks. I just tried to do what I could do. I do a lot of stuff for a lot of other people on social media, so follow me and I'll get to it.
Cool. Well, thank you again so much for your time, Raze. Like, it was awesome for you to just be in the chat last week, but it's even cooler to have you join us on the live stream this week. And of course, maybe when WoW comes back for the next tapings in 2025, we could get you to come on maybe a week or two before to promote those.
I just want to come out here and talk about women's wrestling all the time. Like, I used to be so into intergender wrestling, and now because of WoW for the last 3 years, it's been all women's wrestling, and it's a completely different story, and I actually love it.
I was about to end the interview. It's funny because, like, there was a point in time where I was completely dissatisfied with women's wrestling, and like I kind of felt like, it's not for me. It's not for me. But the athleticism has changed. I feel like the sport has changed, and again, like, there is a different source, a different flavor for everybody out there. I feel like there is some good women's wrestling happening. And if you're, like you said, character driven, like, check out WoW. There's a lot of great characters, a lot of great talent. In just to kind of put you guys over for a minute, like, Beast is a beast. Beast, I think, would work in a lot of different good places. A lot of some of the talent that the NWA has been using currently has come from WoW. I mean, Rekka Tahaka came from WoW, and I know that recently Santana Garrett made an appearance for the NWA. She's a former WoW champion. Holly, yeah, Holly Hood. She's I think she's now kind of like, I don't know if she's signed with the NWA, but she seems to be at everything they're doing now. She's been at the TV taping. She was at Saul Win, so I think maybe she's going to be part of it too.
Man, I'm just saying, when it comes to women's wrestling, especially with WoW, the fact that they have someone like Amazing Maria and Jessie Jones and these girls that actually helped hold up women's wrestling on the independent scene, like, that's phenomenal to me. I'm glad we have them.
Our pal Fez wants to know, where can you stream WoW now?
So if you're looking to watch it on actual TV, where I'm going to tell you, since I don't know where you live, go to www.wowe.com, and there's like a little zip code thing. Besides that, Tuesday nights, you can find it on Vice TV. I know we just got a Pluto TV station. I'm not sure what airs on it because I haven't watched it yet, but it's 24 hours a day of WoW.
That's a lot of. Makes you say, wow.
Wow.
All right. Well, again, Raze, thanks again for your time. And like I said, we'll put the links here in the video description. And best of luck for everything else in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great time.
Bye, Raze.
Bye.
All right, guys, that's the show. Thank you so much for being a part of it. We went a little bit long today, but I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back. Remember, we won't be live this Thursday because of Halloween. We'll be back next Tuesday with another pre-party, getting you all set up for everything else that's going on. So until next time, we'll see you at the matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.